students, today's video is in continuation with the previous one. In the previous video, I had dealt till line number 96 of Browning's famous dramatic monologue, Andrea del Sarto. So today we are going to proceed further. Here are the lines from number 97 to 106. Ah, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for? All is silver grey, placid and perfect with my art, the words. As I had told you in the previous video that he is aware of the fact that he is better as far as craftsmanship is concerned, as far as painting is concerned, he is far much better than common painters. But he is inferior as far as inspiration is concerned, because he understands the fact that common painters are drawing their inspiration from God, whereas his source of inspiration is his wife, who is a mortal beauty. So he had admitted this thing, that although he is lacking in that divine inspiration, yet now he has reached that stage in his art where he is least bothered about praises or blames. That means you can say that he is considering himself as far much ahead than others. But still he is not happy with this fact, as he says, ah, but a man's reach should exceed his grasp. That a man should always be striving hard to achieve perfection. He says it is very difficult if somebody has this notion in his mind that he is perfect. It is very, very difficult for him to lead onwards, to go onwards, because somehow if one is satisfied with one's achievements, he will never be able to put in more efforts to have any more achievements. So he says a man's reach should exceed his grasp. One should always be, you can say, having this feeling that something is lacking in his life. Or what's a heaven for? See, all through our lives, we human beings are aware that one day we all have to die. But still we have our goals. We all lead our lives in the process of attaining that goal. And sometimes for us the goal is as high as attaining heaven. And in this process we are able to lead on our lives. So it is the great philosophy of life that something should be lacking in one's lives that may propel one to lead further. All is silver grey, placid and perfect with my art, the verse. He says, I know that my art is all silver grey. That means silver grey is that combination which gives you the sense of complacency, the sense of peace, or the sense of somehow static position. So he says, in my art, everything is perfect. I have reached that stage in my art where everything appears to be perfect to me. But it is the verse. It is this thing that is the worst one in my life. I know both what I want and what might gain, and yet how profitless to know, to sigh. He says, my life has become very dull because I know what I want and what I might be capable of getting. See, it is a very dangerous situation. We all set our goals and we all are ignorant of the fact whether we will be able to achieve that goal or not. And in this process of achieving that, of trying to achieve that goal, we just pass our lives. But if, just imagine, if you are aware of the fact that you will not be able to achieve that goal, I don't think that we will be able to work with that much vigor had we been unaware of the fact. As has been said, ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it is a bliss to be ignorant, because when we are ignorant, when we don't know actually what will be the outcome of our efforts, we put our body and soul together to just achieve that thing. Similarly, if we are aware of the fact that we will, howsoever hard we may try, we will never be able to achieve that thing, I think most of us will quit. So that's what he is saying. The most boring thing, or the most dull thing, or the worst thing in his life is that he actually knows what he is competent of and what he actually can get. And he says it's very profitless to know, it's very boring, it's very dull to know this reality. To sigh, had I been true, another and myself, our head would have overlooked the world. He says, today I have this feeling, this notion in my mind that had I been true, see, I know my capabilities, and I know if there had been some such situation in which I could get my exact identical twin, and we both could put our heads together to compose something that would have overlooked the world. Perhaps we would have surpassed the whole world. At that time, I did not have any need of the world. No doubt. Now he again proceeds further. See, in these lines, he is just lamenting over the fact that he is so perfect, and he knows his perfection, he is aware of this perfection, that now his life has become very dull. There are no more achievements for him to work for. No doubt yonders a work now of that famous youth, the Urbinate, who died 5 years ago. He says in his studio there was a painting hanging, and it was painted by the famous painter, Renaissance painter Michelangelo. So he says there is the painting of Michelangelo, the Urbinate word is for him. It is hanging in the studio, and it is not the, you can say, the original work of that fellow. Rather, copied George Vasari sent it to me. That painting was sent to him by George Vasari. Now, who is George Vasari? George Vasari was a great Italian biographer, and he used to write about artists and their works. So it was George Vasari who sent Andrea the painting of Michelangelo, a painting drawn by Michelangelo, and it was hanging in his studio. So suddenly he starts paying attention to that painting, and he says, look, there is the painting of that famous Urbinate, that famous youth, that famous painter, Renaissance painter Michelangelo, and it is copy, it is not the original work, it is the copy which has been sent to me by George Vasari. And that fellow had died, this painter had died some 5 years ago. Let's proceed further. Well, I can fancy how did it all, pouring his soul with kings and popes to see. Now he is just analyzing the beauty of that painting. He says, well, I can fancy how he did it all. As he himself is a painter, so he can just have a critical view of somebody else's painted work. That's why he's saying that I can fancy, I can very well imagine how Michelangelo did it. He says he did it by pouring his soul. He put his heart and soul together to paint that with kings and popes to see. And in response to his painting, definitely he got the praise of kings and popes. That means the dignitaries of the society. They might have praised him because it is so perfect. He was so perfect in his paintings. He is just critically analyzing the painting that was hanging in his studio, and it was not the original work. It was sent to him by George Vasari, and the painting was one which was painted by Michelangelo. So he says, when I look at this painting, I can very well imagine how much labors, how much efforts that painter had put in to make it. And now it is for public display. Kings and popes and all the great members of the society, they can very well enjoy the painting. Reaching that heaven might so replenish him above and through his art, for it gives way. He says, after analyzing this painting, I can very well very well tell you that in the process of painting, he might have reached heaven so many times. That means the painting is reflecting that in the process of making it, the painter might have experienced that supreme bliss many times, which is comparable to reaching of heaven. That arm is wrongly put, but as I told you that he is critically analyzing the painting. So he says, although the painting is perfect, but I can point out one mistake here, and that is perhaps it's a portrait, and there is you can say portrait of a person. So the arm in that painting, it was not accurately painted according to Andrea. Being a painter, he has critical eyes for others' works also. So he says, I know that this painting might have been praised by all the great people of the society, and even the painter himself would have reached heaven, would have got heavenly feeling while doing this work. Even then, I can very well point out that the arm that has been painted in this work is not appropriate, it is wrongly put. And there again, a fault to pardon in the drawing's lines. But he says, even then, one can pardon it, one can ignore it, one can just let it go, because the whole some effect of the work is exceptionally good. Its body, so to speak, its soul is right. He says, when one looks at this painting, one tends to share that same heavenly feeling which the painter had while painting. So these minor errors, they can be ignored, because although the body of the painting is not correct, its soul is right. That means the inspiration behind the drawing is exceptionally good. So these minor errors can be ignored. He means right that a child may understand. And there is so much purity reflected out of that painting that even as innocent a person as a child can understand the fact. So in these lines, he says, although I can point out the mistake done by the great painter in his painting, that is, the hand is not accurately painted, even then I know that I can tell you that he, while painting, poured his soul into it, and he himself experienced bliss, the situation of bliss, many times while painting. So these minor mistakes can be ignored, because the same joy can be experienced by the spectators or the onlookers whenever they are going to look at this painting. And it is such an obvious fact that even a child can understand this thing. So that's all for today.